Every major collapse leaves behind the same false belief in its early days, that chaos is random. People imagine looting as irrational mobs smashing windows, stealing whatever shines, acting without logic. History says otherwise. When systems fall, human behavior does not become stupid. It becomes efficient. In the first 72 hours after order disappears, theft follows patterns as predictable as gravity. Items are not taken because they are expensive, but because they reduce desperation, extend decision-making time, or transfer leverage from one group to another. That is why luxury goods rot untouched while certain houses are quietly emptied with precision. The most dangerous mistake intelligent people make is assuming invisibility equals safety. You believe that because you are not wealthy, not loud, not armed to the teeth, you will be ignored. But post-collapse targeting does not care about status. It cares about function. Anything that allows a human to live longer, move farther, heal faster, or wait calmly while others panic becomes a strategic asset. Strategic assets are never ignored. They are identified, tracked, and taken. This video is not about what you want to own. It is about what others will come for once rules stop protecting property. The 7 items ahead are not theoretical. They appear in every collapse, every siege, every prolonged blackout, every failed state. Some of them you already have. Some of them you underestimate. All of them, if exposed, turn you from a survivor into a target. Understand this now. After collapse, survival is not about accumulation. It is about controlling visibility, leverage, and time. And the moment you possess the wrong thing in the wrong way, you enter someone else's equation. The first item that draws attention in a post-collapse environment is not weapons, fuel, or medicine. It is stored food with a long shelf life. Not because it is rare, but because it performs a function no other resource can replace. It creates time. Time to wait. Time to observe. Time to avoid desperate decisions. In a collapsed system, time is the most unevenly distributed resource, and anyone who possesses it quietly separates themselves from the majority who do not. Food storage changes behavior before it changes outcomes. A household with weeks or months of calories does not need to barter early, does not need to scavenge daily, and does not need to expose itself to risk during peak chaos. That behavioral difference is visible. It shows in trash patterns, in cooking smells, in calm routines while others grow erratic. People believe hiding cans and bags is enough. They forget that food announces itself indirectly. Waste attracts animals. Animals attract attention. Regular meals create predictability. Predictability creates suspicion. Historically, during sieges and prolonged shortages, food was never discovered by accident. It was inferred. Neighbors counted days. They watched who lost weight and who did not. They noticed who still had energy when others weakened. In collapse, observation replaces law enforcement. The longer scarcity lasts, the more accurately people identify who has reserves. There is another misconception that turns food into a liability: the belief that it is a personal asset. Long-term food is not consumed all at once. It exists across time, which means it invites repeated targeting. A weapon can be stolen once. Fuel burns quickly. Food promises future benefit. That promise motivates return visits, coercion, and escalation. This is why food stores are often taken without violence at first, through pressure, manipulation, or forced sharing. But once identified, they are never forgotten. The principle is simple and unforgiving. Anything that allows you to wait while others cannot will eventually be taken to equalize the timeline. Clean water access and purification capability are targeted for a reason that most people misunderstand. In collapse, water is not valuable because it keeps you alive today. It is valuable because it allows others to control where you live tomorrow. The moment safe water disappears from public systems, every remaining source becomes a point of gravity. People do not roam randomly in search of water. They orbit around those who have it. Many assume that possessing a personal filter or purifier keeps them beneath notice. That assumption collapses quickly. Water is consumed daily, visibly, and in volume. Unlike food, it cannot be stockpiled indefinitely without infrastructure. Anyone who is not visibly sick, dehydrated, or constantly searching is signaling something. The ability to drink safely without movement exposes a capability, not an object. Historically, collapsed communities did not steal water containers first. They seized wells, pumps, treatment points, and the people who knew how to keep them working. Control of water turns individuals into fixed locations. Fixed locations are easy to monitor, surround, and exploit. Once others depend on your access, you no longer decide who comes to you. They decide when to come back. Another fatal misunderstanding is thinking water is a humanitarian asset. In early stages, it may be shared. As scarcity hardens, water becomes leverage. People trade loyalty, labor, and silence for access. At that stage, anyone who can purify water is no longer a civilian. They are infrastructure. Infrastructure is never allowed to remain independent for long. The danger of water capability is not theft, it is attachment. Once people associate survival with your presence, you lose mobility and anonymity. You become a node in someone else's survival map. The operational rule is blunt. Water does not make you free after collapse. It makes you stationary. And whatever cannot move eventually gets controlled. Fuel and stored energy are targeted earlier than most people expect because they do something collapse cannot tolerate for long. They create unequal capability. Gasoline, diesel, batteries, generators, solar panels, inverters, these are not conveniences. They are force multipliers. Energy allows movement when others are trapped, light when others are blind, and coordination when others are isolated. That difference does not go unnoticed. It is measured, discussed, and acted upon. The most common fatal assumption is that energy independence equals security. In reality, energy creates signatures. Light leaks at night. Sounds carry farther when cities go quiet. Charging devices, running tools, powering radios, or maintaining refrigeration all produce rhythms that separate you from the background. Collapse strips away noise. Anything that still hums becomes a signal. History shows that energy assets are rarely stolen in isolation. They are traced. People watch who still travels, who repairs equipment, who stays warm when temperatures drop. Fuel storage is finite, which makes it predictable. Predictable assets attract planning. Once others calculate how long your power lasts, they also calculate when to take it. Solar systems are often misunderstood as invisible solutions. They are not. Panels announce intent. They signal preparation, foresight, and surplus, 3 traits that invite confiscation. In prolonged collapse, organized groups do not hunt for weapons first. They hunt for logistics. Armies without fuel collapse. So do neighborhoods. Another overlooked danger is dependency. Once you use energy to help others, charging phones, powering lights, preserving medicine, you create reliance. Reliance creates expectation. Expectation hardens into entitlement. When supply cannot meet demand, force follows. The rule is consistent across all failures. Energy that is visible becomes contested. Energy that is contested becomes seized. The moment your power extends your abilities beyond the norm, it also shortens the time before someone decides it should be theirs. Medical supplies and treatment capability mark the moment a survivor stops being viewed as a person and starts being evaluated as an asset. In a post-collapse environment, injury and illness do not arrive gradually. They spike. Infections spread faster. Minor wounds turn lethal. Pain becomes constant. Anyone who can reduce suffering, stop bleeding, or prevent death immediately alters the balance of power around them. This is where most people cling to comforting myths. They believe medical supplies are defensive. They believe healing creates goodwill. They believe sharing medicine earns protection. History is merciless on this point. In collapsed societies, doctors, medics, and anyone with treatment capability are rarely left alone. They are absorbed, controlled, or eliminated. Healing is not neutral. It decides who remains productive and who becomes expendable. Medicine does something uniquely dangerous. It interferes with natural selection under scarcity. Pain and illness are supposed to remove the weak from competition. When you override that process, you challenge the emerging order. Groups respond by claiming that power for themselves. Antibiotics, painkillers, surgical tools, even basic wound care supplies become instruments of negotiation and coercion. Access is granted conditionally. Loyalty is demanded. Refusal is punished. There is also a visibility problem most people miss. Injuries broadcast themselves. Word spreads fast about who can fix a broken arm, stitch a wound, or stop an infection. You cannot hide successful treatment. Survivors talk. Desperate people remember. The more lives you extend, the more eyes turn toward you. Eventually, medical capability creates a trap. You are no longer free to leave because others cannot afford to lose you. You are no longer neutral because withholding care becomes a threat. And once supplies run low, someone will decide who deserves to live longer. The principle is brutal but accurate. The power to delay death is never allowed to remain personal property. In collapse, medicine does not save you. It assigns you a role, whether you accept it or not. Weapons and ammunition are the most misunderstood assets in a post-collapse world because people confuse possession with control. A firearm does not make you invisible. It makes you legible. Armed households broadcast a message whether they intend to or not. Resistance is possible here. That message attracts attention from exactly the people you want least to test it. The popular belief is deterrence. That visible force discourages aggression. In reality, it filters it. The unprepared avoid you. The organized observe you. Groups do not fear weapons, they inventory them. They note what you carry, how you carry it, when you train, how often you fire, and how quickly you resupply. A weapon is not judged by its presence, but by its sustainability. Ammunition is the real target. Guns are durable. Ammunition is finite. Anyone watching understands this. Once your rounds are expended, your threat collapses instantly. This is why armed individuals are rarely rushed early. They are isolated, monitored, and allowed to burn through their supply on lesser threats. When the balance tips, force is applied decisively. Weapons also accelerate escalation. The moment lethal force enters an environment, retaliation logic takes over. Conflicts that might have remained transactional become existential. You are no longer negotiating for resources. You are negotiating for survival. This narrows your options and locks you into a higher risk posture permanently. Another overlooked cost is association. Armed people attract others seeking protection. Protection seekers attract enemies. You inherit conflicts you did not start. Over time, the weapon ceases to be a tool and becomes a role you cannot step out of. The rule is unambiguous. Weapons do not create safety and collapse. They create a spotlight, and anything under a spotlight is eventually tested, surrounded, or taken. Tools that enable repair, production, and fabrication are targeted not because they are scarce, but because they reverse decay. In a collapsed world, everything trends toward breakdown. Machines fail, structures weaken, systems rot. Most people can only consume what remains. A small minority can restore function. That minority becomes dangerous. Wrenches, welding equipment, mechanical parts, electrical tools, spare components, fabrication gear, these do not look valuable at first glance. They do not satisfy hunger or stop violence directly, but they do something far more destabilizing. They allow continuity. The ability to fix a generator, reinforce a door, repair a vehicle, or repurpose scrap changes the long-term equation. It turns ruins into assets. Collapsed societies do not hunt consumers. They hunt producers. A person who can repair extends the lifespan of every other resource. Fuel lasts longer when engines are maintained. Weapons stay functional when parts can be replaced. Shelters become permanent when materials can be adapted. This creates dependency, and dependency creates hierarchy. The most dangerous illusion is thinking tools are low profile. They are not. Repair leaves evidence. Fixed things stand out in a landscape of decay. A working vehicle among broken ones draws questions. Reinforced structures attract inspection. Functionality becomes a signal. Once your capability is recognized, choice disappears. You will be asked to fix things, then expected, then compelled. Refusal is interpreted as hostility. Compliance ties you to whoever controls access to materials. Over time, your tools are no longer yours. They become communal property enforced by threat, and you become the operator attached to them. History repeats this pattern relentlessly. Blacksmiths, mechanics, engineers, and technicians are absorbed into power structures or stripped of their autonomy, not because they are violent, but because they make violence and control sustainable. The governing principle is simple. In collapse, the ability to create value is more threatening than the ability to destroy. And anything that can restore systems will be seized to build new ones under someone else's control. The final and most targeted item in a post-collapse world is not something you can hide in a wall, bury in the ground, or lock behind steel. It is knowledge, skill, and the human being who carries it. This is the point most preparedness discussions avoid, because it forces an uncomfortable conclusion. The more useful you are, the less free you become. Skills cannot be looted once and forgotten. They persist. They travel. They solve problems repeatedly. Leadership, tactical awareness, medical knowledge, engineering ability, agricultural expertise, organizational discipline, these traits reshape group survival. People notice who stays calm, who makes plans, who others listen to. Value announces itself through behavior long before words confirm it. Collapsed societies develop a predatory clarity. Individuals with high utility are identified quickly. They are offered protection first, then obligation. When persuasion fails, coercion follows. Recruitment is rarely voluntary for long. Those who refuse to contribute are seen not as neutral, but as wasteful, withholding something the group believes it deserves. There is a darker side, rarely acknowledged. When a skilled individual cannot be controlled, they are often removed. Knowledge threatens hierarchy. Someone who can survive independently undermines obedience. In environments ruled by scarcity, that threat is intolerable. Elimination becomes simpler than negotiation. The greatest illusion is believing skills are purely an advantage. They are not. They increase your strategic value, which reduces your personal autonomy. You are no longer judged by who you are, but by what you enable others to do. This is why many survivors with deep knowledge deliberately mask competence, make mistakes publicly, or allow others to lead. In collapse, competence without discretion is a death sentence. The final rule is the harshest and the truest. After systems fall, everything of value is controlled. If you cannot hide the item, you must hide the signal. And when the item is you, survival depends not on how much you know, but on how little others realize you know.